Hey everybody, welcome back to another hardcore Minecraft video. I've been super busy in the Series 2 world over on Twitch. We just passed 1,600 days live in that world and we're working on our second mega build. But after seeing how much you all loved the ocean, I figured I should do the exact opposite of that. And while I was sailing away in my boat, escaping the endless waters, something happened and pulled me, dropping me into the sand into an endless desert as far as the eye can see. And this is no vanilla desert. I've added all sorts of additional cool mods, and there's some mysteries and secrets and things I still don't understand quite exactly all throughout these sands, so you're gonna want to check this one out. Link to the mod pack and how to be able to get the world download is down in the pinned comment. Go check that out, and while you're here, why not subscribe or leave a comment on the video? Something like day 18 was really quite surprising, or I can't believe you would fall for that on day 39. Don't worry, that will make sense later. But now, let's tell a story about how I was dropped into an endless desert in hardcore Minecraft, and I survived, thrived, and conquered the world. And as I loaded into the world and spawned, day 1. Now, there's no trees, there's no water, there's no grass, just dead bushes and cactus, and the occasional ruins that have a few of these cactus planks inside, which is my only source of wood right now. I started looking around over the sand in every direction, seeing what landmarks were available, and then I saw it right away. That monolith just kind of called to me. It spoke to the deepest parts of my brain, and something tells me that that had something to do with why I ended up in this desert. While I was watching it though, I didn't look where I was going and accidentally stepped on a rattlesnake, getting bitten and over time being reduced to half a heart on day 1. So this is starting just perfectly. Grabbed a few more cactus planks, running as fast as I could to dodge some crocodiles that started chasing me over the desert sand, trying to make sure to give that obelisk a wide berth. I did not want to get too close. I figured out how to make cactus planks by turning the cactus into cactus needles, combining that with sticks to make planks. So I needed to punch down all of the cactus, and I grabbed a pear, which I ate and reduced me from 1 heart to half a heart. So it's going even better. Using the one wooden pickaxe I had made from all of the cactus planks so far, I grabbed a little bit of cobblestone from around an exposed bit of lava, and then dug down into a desert temple, finding some rudimentary loot, including my first diamond to get me started. You can say day 1 was a bit of a mixed bag. I finished the night by crafting up a furnace and starting to cook a little bit of the sand into glass, because I'm gonna need it. Day 2, I ran out and found a few bits of seeds and fruit just kind of floating there next to some zombie flesh. Not gonna say no to any of that. Walking my way into an abandoned village. Now I'm still at half a heart, so any of these zombies could kill me in an instant, but one of them burned up in the lot, and a few more were trapped inside of their houses. If I'm ever able to get the supplies I need, I can cure them all and make this a pretty great base. I looted all of the hay bales, grabbing a ton of bread, and drank a lot of water out of the well, which I need both because of one of the mods that I installed in order to recover any health. So basically, I spent all day setting up a little bit of a base of operations, planting a lot of cactus so I could start getting way towards a lot of planks through the much longer way of making it work, as well as looting all of the hay bales, all of the spider webs for string, and all of the grass for dirt, which is going to be at a premium. Day 3, I have a bed, finally, from one of the houses that still happened to contain one that didn't also contain a zombie, and I was doing everything I could to get the last little bit of supplies from around this village. I had some decent stuff from the temple and the village itself, but really not a lot to get started too well or to venture too far. So I went down into the mines to get a little bit of cobblestone to be able to just build better tools, being chased by creepers who helped me mine a little bit to upgrade all of my tools to stone. And having torches, I was able to run down and grab some copper and some iron, just really starting to get geared up and get the basic supplies that I needed to survive. I boxed myself up inside of a very small house, was attacked by very many husks, and just ran away from the village. I have no shame there. But before we get too much further into the video, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this 100 Days, Apex Gaming PCs. If you've been watching my channel for a little while, you know I've partnered with Apex Gaming PCs to create a series of 3 computers for my channel, branded Legundo PCs, and it's something that's really exciting. You can get the Guardian, the Myth, or the Legend. So if you're in the market for a new PC, you're looking for something that could run this mod pack or any of the other mod packs I've released, or you want to start getting into content creation, these are the machines for you. You can get all of them now at the link down in the description and the pinned comment. And if you use the code Legundo, you get 5% off your purchase. Directly helps the channel and helps me make more videos like this one. And it's been great to work with them so far. Mine is almost here, and I can't wait for it to arrive. So make sure to check out Apex Gaming PCs, link down in the description, and let's get back to the 100 days. Day 4, I dug my way back into one of the towers and was attacked by more creepers right by the central square of town. I guess they found out it wasn't abandoned anymore. Harvesting all of my cactus to be able to make another round of planks with sticks. I basically spent all of this day just breaking as many of the cobwebs as possible and grabbing as many blocks as I could to be able to build a rudimentary starter house. But into day 5, I realized that this place was just not in the best condition. So I grabbed everything I could, went out firstly in search of sticks, and secondly in search of just anything I could really use. I was jumped by this goblin trader who jump scares me several times throughout this video, and there's a lot of good trades here, but I don't have anything that they'd actually want. I found an abandoned nether portal with a little bit of decent loot. Some flint is going to be extremely useful early game, and then walked finding a second one of these monoliths, which I guess are bioliths now? I made sure to give it a little bit of distance and then saw an actual active village just a few hundred blocks away, and in walking in realized that this one wasn't a mirage. There was villagers here that I could trade with and people that I wasn't going to be spending this whole trip alone. After taking half of the video last time to get villagers, I was super excited to have them on day 5. I walked a little bit further and saw an oasis with a cow and a sheep on it and a bunch of grass and 2 trees, which I was lucky enough to get 1 palm sapling out of, as well as a few blocks of wood from the forester and this double tower, which would make for a pretty awesome starter base. But as I was standing on top of it, I realized that I wasn't the only thing to visit the village today, and yeah, it didn't really go well. The next morning, I realized about 6 of the villagers had succumbed to the plague, so I'm going to need to be making more of them very, very quickly. But you know what I need before that? Money! Turning a bunch of their own wheat and the wheat from the other village back into them to grab emeralds that I was then able to trade with the forester for a way to actually get wood for building. This was basically my loop. Trade in wheat, steal their hay bales, turn it into more wheat, trade it in again, and get more logs. As I ventured out to see what was around the village, I walked past this crypt, which broke its way up to the surface. Going down, I found a lot of zombies, and I mean a lot of zombies. I was finally able to make my way in and throw down a bunch of torches, getting some okay loot from the chest in the center, before realizing that that spawner was just the tip of the iceberg. There was 6 different staircases down to lower levels, all of which were pouring out zombies faster than I could damage them, and they all just ended up meeting me at the entrance to the thing, making an inadvertent mob farm. So I spent basically all day there just getting additional levels before setting up a little bit of a bed and some private storage on the top floor of the tower. On day lucky number 7, I went over to the oasis and grabbed all of the dirt from over there to be able to set up an initial farm. First setting up for the trees and then making sure that I had enough, and then setting up a row of crops to be able to plant a lot of the melon seeds that I had just gotten from the crypt, which I could both use as a food source and trade with my farmers if I got them up to their next level. Bone meal causes a lot of dead bushes to spawn, which is awesome for long-term sustainability because that's a ton of sticks. I saved an iron golem from one of the cacti in the middle of the village and healed them up. Aren't I a nice person? Before setting up a balcony on the top floor of my tower to overlook what has just now become my kingdom. Day 8, I ventured back over to the crypts and made my way down one of the staircases using a bucket of water to keep the zombies at bay, so they wouldn't actually be able to make their way to me to nibble on my throat. Finding a ton of good loot down here and a ton of zombies. I spent over half an hour IRL, which meant this rolled over into day 9. where I found several high-tier enchantment books, apples, some iron, diamond tools, and so much else. And I barely scratched the surface of this place. But it always got overwhelming, and I was thankfully able to set myself up just at that entrance staircase, farming for levels again with my new diamond sword, and more zombies that I could realistically count, spawning faster than I could kill them. On the way back over to the village on day 9, I saw an elephant running around with an invisible wandering trader on top, which is a great way to be able to get some saplings, and I completely biffed it and forgot to do that for the entire 100 days. But when I went to go to bed, some disaster struck, and I don't know what happened here, and a few husks just made their way in and removed a few of the villagers from my village. Whoops. On day 10, I checked back in with the wandering trader to make sure I didn't really miss anything. I did. And that they had nothing of value. They absolutely did, and I didn't notice. Before heading over to the trees, trying to get more saplings, and using a bow and arrow to take out a few of these crocodiles from a distance, one of whom followed me to the center of the village, trapping me on a pole for the majority of the day, until I was able to figure out how to craft a halberd, which gave me a little bit of an extended reach, so I was able to hit them, and they weren't able to hit me. And then the zombies attacked, and I mean attacked in force. It took the entire night just running around critting them all to be able to make sure that they didn't get to any of my villagers. I'm a merciful ruler. Day 11, I continued bashing mobs around the village as well as looting more of the crypts, blocking myself in whenever things got too overwhelming to make sure that I wouldn't get dead. I came across this weird experiment chamber that had a brewing stand, a lot of soul sand, and some more good resources in the chests, which is pretty valuable. I still am not able to make my way down to the 3rd basement level. There are far too many zombies there. But when I went back up, the world was overcast and cloudy, and there were tornadoes, which were attacking everything. And I do mean everything. Every single mob that's not a tornado gets attacked by these things and thrown up into the air. I did what I could to save the wandering traders and my villagers, but eventually had to just retreat back to my tower and hope for the best. And on day 12, we lost some more people. As these things were throwing me around, I was reduced back down to half a heart. So I kind of just had to sit back and watch as my villagers were yeeted around and crashed into the ground at violent speeds. Once they were safe and sound, I boxed a few of them inside of their homes, sheltering in place until I could figure out how to make the living tornadoes go away, grabbing a bunch more wood and finishing up that balcony to overlook on the kingdom that I was now protecting. On day lucky number 13, I surveyed out around the village again, heading in a different direction and coming across this cool double ravine, which went all the way down to diamond level. I used the oldie bucket trick to make my way down and up, searching around for more diamonds, and all that happened is I got jump scared by another goblin trader. I found a lot of lapis and forgot to do the lapis trick. Don't worry, I'll remember later in the video. So I called it a wash and headed back towards the village, finding another elephant trader, and then tried to figure out if I could get leather from their elephant. Don't worry, I can't actually, so they survived. I spent the night harvesting up melons and crafting melons for trading, which I will use eventually, as well as sugarcane to be able to just make sugar and paper, because who doesn't want more sugarcane? On day 14, I really need to not just be drinking random water that I'm finding everywhere. So I investigated the best way to make a water filtration system so I could get purified water. Turns out I need charcoal, which is easy enough to get, sand, which was really easy to get, and just a little bit of wood. So I was able to make that up, and it runs off of charcoal, and I get purified water bottles, which is a huge step up. I then took a little bit of the extra wood and made some stairs off of my tower towards the central area of town, so I can more easily make my way in, and a nice little retaining wall, just so things are starting to come together. Day 15, I headed out in another direction with some better water in my pack. I was able to go a little bit further, finding another desert temple that inside had a golden apple and some diamond horse armor, both of which would be pretty useful later on the line. I grabbed a lot of iron for more tools, as well as to be able to make an anvil, stopped by a ruined portal, finding basically nothing inside, and then found another active village, this one with a temple and this very fancy house just outside of its city limits. The temple only had a few enchanted books of note in it, but the house had a ton in here in quality and decoration. plus a lot of water, a lot of grass, and a lot of wood. I slept there, and on day 16, cleared out a few of the random mobs that were standing around everywhere, refilled all of my water bottles, and found another wandering trader, again, not really selling anything valuable. And while the elephants won't give leather, the llamas do. I stopped by the village, stole all of their buttons, and was once again attacked by those living tornadoes. And they also got hit by the zombie virus, so I might just be an omen of bad luck. So I did what any brave hero would do and abandoned the village, running back to the one that I knew about and hid myself in my tower. On day 17, I banked all of the resources that I had collected thus far and traded a lot of the zombie flesh that I've been getting from the crypt with my cleric to level them up and hopefully get good trade. And it's time to get started with the create mod. I can get leather by using this from a few different sources, including grinding down saddles and armors. So I made a grindstone and then figure out, oh yeah, I need to power this thing, making a little bit of a water wheel and setting up some rudimentary gears to be able to get the whole thing spinning. I threw in the diamond horse armor and okay, that requires the bigger thing. So without an idea on how to get any leather, I was kind of stuck in this moment. So I thought, why don't I head back to my first base, grab everything from the abandoned village, and then go back to the first monolith to try to ask it for some help or some guidance to see if it could point me to anything valuable. And, well, you'll see.
Okay, that's not what I was expecting. I was gonna do a whole bit about, like, asking the monolith for guidance and all sorts of... Okay. Alright, well, that's a little anticlimactic, but okay, let's go with it. Nice!
I was able to drop down on top of the spawner, immediately torch it, grab all of the gold and all of the resources and a sick banner from one of the chests, and then made my way back up.
Yo! Thanks, Monolith. I got exactly what I needed. That's perfect. This is You're my favorite thing ever. Woohoo! Oh, there's a village there too. Oh my god, yeah.
Alright, that wasn't how I was expecting it to go, but shortly after, I did find a desert temple that had multiple golden apples, multiple diamonds, and multiple other great things. I slept off at a random village before popping back out the next morning and stealing all of their hay bales. Then found they had something even more valuable.
They have pigs. They have... Did I bring my leads? I don't have my leads. I'm coming back for you. I am coming back for you, and I am going to steal you.
Techno's cousins, I'm coming to free you! On the way back, I crossed over what looks to be a gigantic spider nest, and I'm not touching that thing, as well as a pillager outpost and a random llama who just happened to donate their leather to me. Back at the base, I ground up any saddles that I currently had in order to get a little bit more leather so I can craft some useful tools, put the banner on my shield to make myself look that much more threatening, and then continued building out on the wall to make the village look a little bit more worthy. Can you believe it's already day 20 and we're 1/5 of the way through this whole video so far? I started the day just by doing a little bit of wood gathering, a little bit of resource collecting, trading some emeralds for some lapis just to get my villager leveled up. But I need string and wool to be able to craft a backpack so I can carry a lot more in my pocket. So I headed back to that spider nest, thinking that I would just break a bunch of cobwebs, but they had full blocks of wool in the middle of this thing. So you know I had to drop in and get it. There are a lot of other side paths, but I am not that brave. So I grabbed what I could, shoved it in my pockets, and then booked it back home before the end of the day. On day 21, I was finally able to craft a backpack, which gives me a whole secondary inventory of things that I could hold. Bundles should really work like this, to be honest. I did a little bit of trading and then worked to improve the tower even further, making it look just a little bit more Legundo worthy and something that I would actually live in. Another wandering trader popped by, giving me a free emerald, which was pretty great, but other than that, I really didn't have anything of value other than their llamas, of course. But I found another way to make leather, and that's through blood magic. Now, this is new for me, so I didn't know exactly how to make this thing work. I set up the blood altar and then was looking through all the recipes and was attacked by some tornadoes, just, you know, randomly getting distracted as you do, and then looked up the recipe for a sacrificial dagger. Yeah, you have to hurt yourself in order to charge up the blood altar. And I spent a decent chunk of day 23 doing this before realizing that with the food and water mods that I had installed, this was a really bad idea. And it took all day, and I have no idea how much blood I actually put inside of that thing. And I was starting to get a little frustrated, so I thought, you know what? Can I ride an elephant? And it turns out, no, you can't ride an elephant even if you tried. But you can harness them up and keep them forever. I used the little bit of leather that those llamas had donated, though, to make my backpack medium, which was a ton more storage space. Day 24, I found a sheep in the sand ravine, just randomly, and got them leaded up as well, grabbing a little bit more iron and coal and just a bit of the resources that we needed. I found one of the desert temples that I had looted previously and grabbed all of the saddles that I had remembered I had left there, finding an unlooted one shortly after with a bunch more saddles and more diamonds. This is the primary way that I found diamonds for this entire Let's Play so far. I found another random village and spent the night stealing their hay bales and crashing there before the morning of day 25, when I realized that they had 2 cows, and I wanted 2 cows, and I had 2 leads. I bred them up, and using the 3 leads that I had in my inventory, trekked those cows across the desert past the fancy house and all the way back to my base, making a little bit of a pen to keep them inside and having all of the cows there, and now I have infinite leather. Literally day 25 is just the cow adventure, but you know what? It's a huge milestone for the world. Day 26, I took all of those saddles and ground them up into leather, which was enough to finally make a canteen, which can hold as much water as 5 bottles. This greatly increases my travel capability, as well as breeding the cows together. And then I did a little bit of trading and then prepped a bunch of torches to head over towards the crypt and thought, you know what? I should really enchant my stuff now. So I went over to the ruined nether portal to get just a few blocks of obsidian from there, as well as a book that I was able to craft from a random piece of leather that I had to make an enchanting table and finally get that down, looking at the first couple enchants on my gear. Now that I was all purple and shiny, I still had a few enchanted books that I had gotten from the crypt that I wanted to put to use. So I needed to search around to get a lot of iron to build an anvil, finding a patch of dirt, which would be awesome. I could set up more farming land with it when... Okay, I know everybody loves making a meme about me not paying attention, but that totally just snuck up on me. I cooked all of the iron and set up another row for melons and pumpkins to be grown, bashing all of the zombies that were coming across, tag teaming with my iron golem friend here. I was able to use a couple books to be able to increase my levels of protection on a few pieces of my gear, and then on day 28, I was down into the crypts to attempt to make my way down to the 3rd basement level. I used a lot of 1x1 holes in walls and blocking up different tunnels to be able to secure my way through, eventually finding skeletons with iron swords that, if they had hit me one more time, would have taken me down to practically dead. On the lower levels, I started finding more and more diamonds, which I've still yet to mine a single diamond, and I think I found maybe a half a stack at this point. Bashing zombies over walls and using my patented bucket trick to hold back the horde. As it rolled over into day 29, I was in here for quite some time and very surrounded. There are a ton of spawners and a ton of pieces of loot in here, including more diamond tools. Now I basically have the full set. If I was going to be playing this world for a very long time, this thing would be better than the Octo Chunk with how many spawners are active inside of this space. I continued into day 30, finding more golden apples and more enchanted books, working my way through and finding even more diamonds as I started hitting the lowest basement floor of the entire facility. And the loot was just unreal, and I've cleared 5 out of the 6 staircases down to the lower levels, but I was out of water and it was storming again, which meant we were getting tornado attacks again. So it was time to head back to my village and do what I could to protect them from the storm and kill all of the tornadoes downtown before they completely eliminated my village. And to do that, it was time to upgrade my bow. And I immediately put a few of the books from the crypt to work to make my armor and weapons that much more powerful. But on the morning of day 31, it was just me and Jimothy over here, just standing out in the middle of nowhere. And then a tornado attacked and Jimothy was gone. as well as basically everyone else in the entire village. In fact, at this point, the only one who had survived was the forester that I had trapped inside of their home. Luckily, I had another village just relatively close by that I could potentially go and say hello to. Unluckily, I didn't want to have to come all this way every time I wanted to do trading. So on day 32, I was out in search for a lava pool. I found my way back over to the fancy house, grabbing a few of the supplies that were hidden underneath hay bales and behind cobwebs, yoinking all of the books from the upper floor to immediately increase the level of enchants that I could actually do back at base. I found a lava pool and committed every speedrunner's worst nightmare, grabbing enough obsidian for 2 portals, so I'd be able to set up a little bit of a nether highway to be able to get villagers from one place to another. It's time to capture, relocate a few villagers back to my home base. Coming through the portal and holding shift, I was very glad that I did, because I spawned right on a cliff over an ocean of lava, as seems to be tradition for me. I was looking out at the landscape and I was like, yep, that's the nether. Before writing down the coordinates, heading back towards my village before establishing a second nether portal on this side. However, before I was able to write everything down, I was attacked by a bunch of piglins, forgetting to wear their colors when coming onto their home turf. Turns out the nether has goblin traders as well, and I very quickly grabbed a few pieces of nether wart from them, which would come in extremely handy, before writing down the coordinates and coming up with a plan. But I wanted some extra luck, so I took one of the cows and just walked them over to the Monolith and provided a little bit of an offering, a sacrifice, anything to appease it so that potentially this next little bit would go my way. You'll be fine, cow. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You'll be totally okay. Just don't think about it too hard. On day 34, I walked back over to the first of the 2 nether portals that I had created because it was lower in the nether and it's far easier to dig up than it is to dig down. Knowing where my goal and where my start were, I just started chewing a tunnel through, trying to get from one portal to the other, and I was successfully able to do so. When I was finally able to talk to that goblin on the other side, I traded in a little bit of netherrack just to get more emeralds, because capitalism is king. For legal reasons, that is a joke. For setting up a little area in the new village to entice a few of the villagers to make their way over. I grabbed the working stations and a bed, waited until night, and then replanted the bed directly in front of the portal, goading one of the villagers to make their way in and then blocking them in so they couldn't really go anywhere. Once I broke the bed, they popped through the portal, and then once I headed into the nether, it was a quick trip through the tunnel, leading a few villagers that had made their way through before a ghast came and blasted everything and started to really put everything at risk. I was able to take it down and then successfully re-encourage my villagers to stay within the area that I had designated for them, pushing them all the way through the portal and then plopping down some beds so that they would reassign themselves into my village instead of where their home was. Repopulation complete. On the morning of day 35, I was trading with my villagers through the little safety hole in the side of their home, cooking up all of the potatoes just to get a little bit more set up. I accidentally let one of the villagers out and they just walked away into the desert, just off in a random direction. So I thought, you know what? What if I make my way all the way back to the village and break all of the potential workstations so that they'd stop trying to pathfind to these chunks instead? And while that was great in theory, and it allowed me to capture a few more villagers and transfer them back over towards the actual primary village, it did nothing for the one who was just randomly wandering in the desert. They stayed there out in the sands for the remainder of this 100 days. But I transferred these few villagers over. It took literally all day, but finally the village was a little more popular. Oh no, the tornadoes are back. On day 37, one of my new villagers was starting to feel the call of the monolith and was being pulled towards it. Now, I don't like being this close to it. I feel this weird crackling in the air, but the villagers seemed relatively unaffected. Even when I tried to trap them in a hole, they basically just kept escaping my sand pit traps. They're a little too smart. I was able to use barrels to lure them back towards the village and get them reassociated with a new role before trapping them inside of a house so they couldn't actually go anywhere. Now, 3 villagers is not going to be enough, so I started throwing a bunch of bread into that house, knowing that they'll eventually make more if I just make sure they're well fed. On day 38, I thought, you know what? it's worth the risk. Let's try. Let's see if they'll stay in town now. Nope. Nope, they do not stay in town right now. But I cannot live on just stolen hay bales alone. It's time to actually start growing some crops to have an actual sustainable, renewable food source for both the villagers and for myself. I set up a 9x9 grid, planting carrots and bone mealing the heck out of them to be able to get as many as possible. Plopped down the books that I had stolen from that big house with a little bit of wood from around here, and then just farmed throughout the remainder of the day. On day 39, it was really just making sure everybody felt the love. Wheat for the cows, bread for the villagers, trees for me. So everybody had exactly what they wanted. I kept working on the tower, finishing up the last 2 corner posts and making it fully oak, so everything was looking pretty good. Before doing a little bit more trading with my cleric villager, and then hold up, wait a minute, do you see that? I didn't do anything wrong to this person, and they increased the rates on me. They're charging me more, they're charging me interest. Now, is this because I kidnapped you from your home village and set you to work here in this village with no recourse or attempt or way to ever return home to your family? I'm on to you. On day 40, it was time to head back into the Nether, and when I went there, I found another villager and another iron golem. I thought, you know what, they're feeling lonely. I should pull them back over to the overworld, and then they didn't have a job, so I made sure that they had that, and then I set up all the trades, and then a vein goblin came through, so I traded some carrots with them, leading into day 41, where I was just spending all of my time making sure that I could do a lot of farming and trading to get a little more emeralds and make sure everybody's well fed, you know. And then I went to the Nether, and there was a magma cream there, and then I thought, you know what, I could go back to the overworld and use that magma cream to brew up some potions of fire resistance. And no, I'm not stalling. What are you talking about? All right, I totally was. I'm always nervous about the Nether, especially with the mods that I install in these run-throughs. But I went through and was finally looking around, finding that's a fortress. Well, now that I know where a fortress is, on day 42, I started staircasing my way down and across and bridging over all of the lava, mining up a little bit of quartz for experience and just to have some of that in the inventory, before popping in and looking around and immediately walking directly into a blaze spawner. The first few kills were pretty hard because they were setting me on fire a lot, but once I had a single blaze rod, I had brought the potions and the brewing stand and everything else that I needed, and I was able to brew up some fire resist potions, which then made the rest of the blaze rod gathering trivially easy. Coming prepared makes this pretty simple. I spent all day doing that, and then on day 43 was basically walking around trying to find other resources that I could get in the Nether. I grabbed some more nether wart, both from a garden and from a chest, finding more saddles so I could get more leather, and then realized I was running out of food. So I had to eat a golden apple and some cookies, grabbing a little bit of glowstone so I could use that for potions, and I actually used that this time around before being attacked by ghasts and nervously running across the bridge, hoping that they didn't just blow it out from underneath my feet. A little bit of capitalism, and then back through the portal, finding a new zombie villager who has just been walking around so I can increase the size of my village. I trapped them inside one of the blacksmiths, and the golem was super helpful in just kind of killing them. That sucked. The next morning I figured out that was my cleric that had gotten killed, unfortunately, and I was not having the best luck in keeping my villagers alive. So instead of focusing on them, I focused on myself a little bit, just enhancing the tower and doing another set of inventory management montage, which I know is everybody's favorite part of all of these videos. But on day 44, it's time to make sure the village is actually populated, and there have been more villager deaths in this video than I care to admit. I did a little bit of trading with all of them and opened it up, hoping that they wouldn't run away, and they actually stuck around this time while I took care of the cows, but one of the cows tried to escape. Yeah, I don't know what's happening there, but now at least my village seems moderately secure and new villagers are being born, so we can keep working on getting this all set up. I set up a lectern so that the new villager would become a librarian and I could start getting into enchanting, and spent the night capturing endermen in boats and stabbing them repeatedly in the face, and then finding some new leather just sitting around everywhere. Day 45, it's more pumpkins, getting my first villager up to master tier so I can get golden carrots if I'm willing to invest the money in them. Right now bread is cheaper. Can't grind up the leather horse armor despite thinking that I could, so it's still just relying on saddles scales and my cows for leather right now. I did use the grindstone to remove the enchants from a few of the books that I was likely not going to use, mainly ones related to water, because there is no water in this world, to build up a few more bookcases and increase my enchanting level, throwing any food that I have left over on the farmers. And on day 46, once that villager had fully grown up, it was time to spend time with them to teach them the proper magics. I was breaking and replacing this lectern for the entire day and got absolutely nothing worthwhile. Cursive binding, yeah, that would be great. I buried them in a hole so they could think about it overnight and repeated the process the next day until I eventually got sharpness 5, which wasn't exactly what I was hoping for, but is still a really good enchantment to have. I locked in their trades and then spent the rest of the day just trying to raise enough emeralds and making a new sword that I could get it enchanted, and then set it up with a sharpness 5 book on top of it. Day 48, I'm still farming, but just because I have that one sword doesn't mean I don't want to look into some other weapons. A giant flanged mace is an option, and you know what? I just kind of want to bash things with a giant flanged mace. So I spent some time collecting more endermen in boats throughout the remainder of the day because I want to start getting ready for endgame. I found this spider which was thrown on its back, and I'm just going to leave this here because I laughed at this and you all should get to laugh at it too. Before walking into another random village that I had found in my exploration, crashing here, and on day 49, looking around and once again stealing all of their hay bales. I am the desert bandit. But it turns out they had a monolith as well, and the feeling I get around these things, it really kind of creeps me out. I don't like it. I walked around checking out a few of the other desert landmarks, including this well, just grabbing a few of the slabs and finding some free money and emeralds downstairs. Coming into another village that was actually being protected by its iron golem. I have no idea what the ones back at my base are doing wrong. They had a desert temple also right at the end of their village, and as I went to walk up, it exploded. That's super unfortunate. Day 50, I completed my raiding runs, finding another abandoned nether portal with just a couple things in its chest, when I saw these fellas with their crossbows loaded and pointed right at me. Now, I am not ready for a raid quite yet, so I can't kill the pillager captain by my own hand. Instead, a fire will do. But I was able to eliminate this raiding party of bandits. I mean, who would go around to villages stealing stuff? Unforgivable. Before finding another oasis with a second sheep. And now that I have 2, this is huge. I got them back to the base, and I can have infinite sheep if only I could get some grass. Day 51, I was doing research on how I could make grass grow in the middle of the desert. The create mod looked promising, infusing water into a dirt block in order to make grass, but that relied on one thing that I wasn't going to find: kelp. And there is no kelp anywhere in this entire world. My only hope is a wandering trader, and I don't think they're going to trade that to me. My luck is not that good. So instead, silk touch is likely the way to go. I made a ton of bread and threw it to all of my villagers and just waited for more to be born, taking the time to practice my boat clutching, and I am not dreaming. After that, I basically just spent the whole night torching around the village so fewer things would be spawning and killing my villagers so that the babies actually had a somewhat decent chance of survival. On day 52, I found a shaft that dropped all the way back down to diamond level, which made me think I could actually, mine some diamonds at some point in time in this entire playthrough. I'm over halfway through, I'm almost in full diamond tools, and I haven't broken a single diamond ore block yet. As I was running around, I saw the most terrifying thing I've seen in all of Minecraft to date, and immediately pillared out thinking, I do not have enough arrows to fight this thing, running as fast as I could, and I have no shame in saying that I stood in the middle of town, bounced in a circle, and waited for that thing to despawn. But I knew I would need arrows, which meant it was time to make a Fletcher for the village. And on day 53, while fighting the husks that were attacking in the morning, I made a big mistake. I had accidentally bopped the iron golem while fighting the zombies, and they almost one-shot me down to just 3 hearts. Once that was handled, I went over to my new Fletcher, and thankfully they were selling arrows right off the bat. So I don't need to worry about finding flint, and I don't have any chickens in this world. I went back down into the mines and double checked that that little evil millipede had disappeared, and instead was surrounded by 1,000 creepers, which are much easier to manage. I know how they work. I found some lapis and did the trick to finally break my first diamond ore, finding a lot more shortly after that. As I was mining down at one point, I accidentally dug through a piece of bedrock. Yeah, that's a sentence that you hear now, and found myself in another dimension, surrounded by deep slate on all sides, creepy sounds, and skulk growing as far as the eye could see. This place was extremely unsettling, and this is the deep dark, or at least a version of it that is available in this mod pack. The skulk blocks would randomly trigger and trap, and I don't know if they would damage me or anything else, but I'm not giving them the opportunity to even try. I finally broke down into an actual chamber and found skulked zombies and multiple wardens. These things move fast, and I do not even want to see how hard they hit. If this is anything of what 118 is going to look like, this is absolutely terrifying. I saw enough, so I ran immediately back up my tunnel, broke the block that was above me, popped back into the tunnel that led me to the overworld, made my way back up to the surface, having spent 3 days on this mining expedition, and banked all of the skulk and random stuff that just kind of felt gross. Day 56, I was teaching more magic. This isn't Hogwarts though, so they're not exactly getting what they want that quickly. So I had to spend some time also doing some melons and working on the cows. I'm really gunning for mending right now, just so I could finally get that book and just have my gear last a little bit longer, and I am not having good luck because into day 57 I was basically doing the exact same thing. I made a diamond mace and a diamond chest plate to better increase my armor and my offensive capabilities, smelting up all the gold and cooking a decent bit of food to be able to get me through these days. I am starting to get pretty well geared. Day 58, I'm a few diamonds short to complete my set of armor and tools. I want multiple pickaxes for both Fortune and Silk Touch, and I saw some diamonds down in the deep dark, so I mined my way down, broke my way in, and found myself in another tunnel. There's a bunch of diamonds embedded in the walls down here, and I was able to get everything that I needed and more. But before I got greedy, I popped back into the overworld, and then went exploring in a different direction in the overworld caves, where those creepy sounds weren't constantly in my ear. I found more diamonds in a ravine, and then in setting my way across, I found some unlit torches just sitting in one of the tunnels, leading to a giant set of double doors, which just looks super ominous. The place was trapped and aggressive and had mobs spawning from the spawners, even with light supposedly disabling it. But then the spawner would automatically break itself. I fought my way through several rooms of this little mini stronghold, in a sense. It looked abandoned and worn and weathered, before eventually getting to the loot with an amazing bow on it, which that's such a huge upgrade, as well as a good old-fashioned regular skeleton spawner. My shield broke, so it was time to finally upgrade to an iron shield, and I went in and was able to bash everything and mine up all the bone blocks, digging a shaft directly to the surface. Now I basically have an infinite source of bone meal, which means I have infinite everything. Day 60, we're almost 2/3 of the way through this entire video, and I spent it basically farming. I still basically have to rely on plants for all of my emerald generation so that I could go and get any books or do any purchases. But it's hard to know what I can actually trade if I'm not keeping track of everything. So between all of my supply runs, I basically spent the last 15 minutes, 10 minutes of the day just organizing all of my inventory. On day 61, I saw both fortune but also efficiency 4 in the enchanting table, and I figured instead of going for the certain thing, let's risk it and go big. I spent a little bit of time trading with all of my villagers and breeding up the cows just to get myself up to the proper level, and basically worked on all of the houses to make them a little bit safer. And then the next day I went back over to the Nether, finding several more iron golems that I just kind of disposed of before being jumped by 2 ghast right outside of the portal, and this was a bit of a problem. I was able to bow the first one down when I was attacked by a murder koala walking along the ceiling, and then jump scared by the ghast right behind me. Only a few hearts down, I dropped my bow in a panic, losing it in the fire, and then being reduced to just 2 hearts. I ran through the portal, boxed myself up, recovered, and realized that that awesome bow that I had just gotten like 2 days prior and shot all of twice was now completely gone. I spent the rest of the day mining up quartz just to get myself up to level 30 so I can enchant my diamond pickaxe, and then found a piglin and threw a bunch of gold at them, making them the wealthiest piggy on this side of the block, and trying to do a little bit of trading looking for some resources that I could really use. Got a lot of boots and some blackstone, but nothing too awesome. I returned home and had a vain goblin trader actually follow me, and they wanted carrots for emeralds, 1 for 1. So you bet your butt I spent all day making a ton of carrots and then just threw them into their face. I started looking up other ways to make diamonds, and those crushing wheels that I never get to in Create but are always recommended me were really tempting. But I had quite a few already, so after doing another day of capitalism, I made myself another diamond strengthened longbow. This thing takes a little bit longer to draw, but it hits like a truck. On day the best console ever, I enchanted my pickaxe and was able to get Silk Touch, which means I'm going to be able to get dirt. I spent some time also enchanting my bow and then using my new pickaxe to break melons far more efficiently, grab a bunch of clay pots and grass from over by the fancy house, and then ran my way back throughout, basically taking the whole day to make the whole trip. Now that I had grass, I could actually breed my sheep up and get infinite wool because they could actually regain their coats. But I was so far out so late in the day that the sun set and I was too far away from any beds and had to fight a bunch of mobs all the way home to make my way back to safety. It was chaotic at some points, but I don't think I was ever really at risk of dying. I was pretty well equipped in diamond armor and protection enchantments. I found my way into another random village. I got a little turned around in the desert at one point, looting their blacksmith, finding a ton of diamonds and some other weapons, and the zombie virus trapped inside of one of their houses. Oh well, they're doomed. Their local ruined nether portal didn't really have much to speak of, but their desert temple had quite a few golden apples and a lot of bones that are gonna come in handy. They also had a crypt full of zombies, and I knew I didn't have the time to clear this one fully, so I just looted the first floor, torching up as much as I could and bopping everything for a little bit of free experience and getting myself back up to level 30 so I could do more max tier enchants once I returned home. I found yet another desert temple that had a lot of iron and some decent mid-tier resources. More golden apples is always nice. And on day kill all the Jedi, I remembered that sand is coarse and rough and it gets everywhere. But I was able to find my way back to the village, building up a little bit of a potato reserve, considering I didn't really have any of those up to this point, banking all of the saddles and weapons and other items that I had collected, and spending the day just decompressing back in the village. Day 67, I wanted to avoid more golems and villagers making their way into the portal and getting stuck in hell, so I set up just a little bit of a gateway to block that off, taking full advantage of a silk touch tool to be able to trade melons much more efficiently. More bread for all the villagers meant new people that I was going to be able to trade with the following day, and I used the forester to get a bunch of different woods, leveling them up to master tier as well, finding some diamond tools that are good, but not great. I took one roll at a level 30 enchant and got only unbreaking, bit of a bummer, trading a lot of emeralds for a lot of bows that I would just never use to level up the Fletcher and get myself back up to level 30, grabbing my first protection 4 book from one of my other librarians. But instead of hitting max enchants, I realized I needed to repair my boots with feather falling because I do not want to die to gravity. The next day, it was time to set up the sheep pen, and I set up a little bit of grass between all of the palm trees that I wasn't really harvesting right now, making sure that they had everything that they needed and breeding them up so that way we would have more wool. And you know what? At this point, I think it's time to find the Stronghold. I've spent over 2/3 of this world now, and it's time to go out and search. I found another wandering trader that was trying to sell me cactus in a desert. Not the best economic choice. Following the Eyes of Ender off in a direction that I hadn't ventured out at all, I came across another desert temple that had some okay loot in it, but nothing really too amazing to speak of, and then was tag teamed by a creeper and an enderman. Just watch. That was honestly way too close, and that set the tone for this trip. It was gonna be a tough one. On day haha funny number, I ran into another village, stealing a little bit of their gold, another temple, grabbing basically just the gunpowder, and spent almost the entire day just wandering off in the desert, going as far as I could. At one point, the eyes started pointing down, and I dug in, and yeah, these strongholds are a lot cooler than the vanilla ones. I dug into a gigantic library infested with spiders and was able to deactivate the spawner, running through to all of the crypts, finding bone meal and prison cells and a ton of resources and loot that would really just make things so awesome. There was diamonds sitting around here in some of the graves that was totally not a bad thing that I was desecrating, right? And then, oh wait, protection for diamond chest plates just sitting out in the open. Thank you. I also realized that I had done this entire trip without pants on, so I finally popped those on. Spending over a full day and fully filling my large backpack and my pockets with more loot than I could possibly carry. These strongholds are something else. I did eventually find the end portal itself, breaking the silverfish spawner and realizing I was going to be one eye short because there was no eyes in this portal. Making my way up to the surface, and wouldn't you know it, the tornadoes were attacking. I quickly headed to sleep so I didn't have to deal with other mobs, and on day 71 started building a little bit of a forward outpost at this side of the location, storing all of the inventory that I didn't need to carry with me 100% of the time, and building a nice little arch and some chest storage and a little place to camp out on this side of the trek to the stronghold. I compressed a lot of my resources into blocks so I had a better idea of how much I could carry, and set a water elevator down into the stronghold, doing some more looting and just finding everything that I could. There was a ton of stuff in here, and I mean a ton. I could probably spend 20 days just looting the stronghold. I barely scratched the surface of this thing. But as the tornadoes continued to attack in the night and into day 72, I was primarily targeting Endermen to get the last few pearls for the last few eyes that I needed, when I came across another village on this side of the desert and a ruined portal. I looted the village for anything that was valuable and checked out their desert temple, basically just finding a lot of gold before sleeping here, and then on day 73 putting the effort into completing the Nether portal and popping over to the Nether. Now I had waypoints on all of my other portals, so it was really easy to just know which wall to dig through and work on a 2x1 tunnel, getting myself from point A to point B. I had a bridge over lava at some points, but it really was just a matter of doing the work to find my way back to the village on day 73, where I banked a lot of the resources that I had, and then just started preparing a care package for the end. I set a lot of firework rockets in my inventory. Once I found an elytra, I wanted to be able to fly everywhere. Grabbed a bunch of blocks for bridging between the end islands, and you could tell I was going into this fight confident. The dragon was going to fall. I filled up all of my arrows, ran back through the Nether towards the stronghold portal, grabbed a few more sugarcane just for some additional paper, down into the stronghold, threw in the eye, and jumped through into the end. It was time for a dragon fight. I immediately set up some Enderman safety huts before looking at any of them this time, so that way I wouldn't just get bopped into oblivion unexpectedly. And with a longbow and a pretty good shot that I had been training for some time, it was quick to eliminate all of the crystals. The only problem I had was not only Endermen were spawning in this world, the farmer zombies followed me to this dimension as well. And the dragon herself was yeeting me up into the sky, which was my main source of taking damage. But a dragon fight, if you've seen it once, you have seen it many, many times. The difference is in the details. I was shooting her as much as possible. Once she perched, I would just teleport behind her with an ender pearl and just stab her in the throat repeatedly. Or I guess bash her in the throat since I'm using a mace. That's bludgeoning damage, right? But at one point she threw me up so high, it was going to be instant death because I didn't have a water bucket in my inventory. So I landed on one of the towers, saving myself from going kersplat, but having to block zigzag my way back down to the surface in order to actually engage in any combat. I got a few pearls in my inventory from that point forward, just to make things easier, and from then the battle was sold, with a trusty diamond longbow doing additional damage on top of being enchanted. This fight was over in under 2 days, sniping her out from the middle of the sky, collecting all of the experience, and grabbing the dragon egg, heading back to home. I respawned back in the village of Victor, immediately wanting to put the dragon egg on display. I built up a little pedestal just to keep it on, thinking, you know what, this is great. I should remind the villagers just how awesome I am. Refilled on all of my arrows because even though I had this egg, I was not done with the end right now. I was AFK for a little bit, just Googling something quick. I forget what it was when I was attacked by a tornado in the middle of the village, throwing me around. But I'm not scared of these storms anymore. I've killed gods. I did a quick jaunt back through the Nether, down into the Stronghold, and back into the end. It's time to go get our wings. Now I've modded the end that it looks almost unrecognizable from the barren landscape that you would normally see in vanilla Minecraft. There's a ton of different biomes and creatures, and also apparently giant virophages that are just flying around trying to infect everyone. Social distancing, please. I found my first end city and parkoured my way through it using the levitation to get up to the top tier loot, but unfortunately this one didn't have a ship. But that doesn't mean I wasn't here for multiple things. The gear at the top was definitely nice, and shulker boxes would definitely come in handy. At one point in time, I ended up pearled inside of a wall, which was a little strange. All of the loot at the top was honestly pretty great. There was a bunch of the different Spartan weapons with different enchantments, and allowed me to have more versatile toolkit depending on what combat I was involved in. But with no ship, I went from the first end city to the second, using ender pearls to teleport across some of the gaps, something that I normally never do. And then at one point, I was just surrounded by a ton of farmers at every angle in the water. This is when things started to get weird. One of the viruses tried to get me as well, but thankfully they're not a waterborne pathogen, just like the Enderman, who can't bot me as long as I'm sitting in one of these fountains. But as I started to run out of water, good water, and I was out of arrows, it was time to turn around and head back home, wingless only for now. On day 80, I was storing all of the loot that I had collected from all of the different end cities, and with an almost full backpack again, that took a full day of inventory management montaging. I spent some time naming my pickaxes so I would knew which one is Silk Touch and which one is the moneymaker, and was re-upping with all of my villagers and all of the supplies, trying to get another round of librarians born so I could learn new magical spells, when I was filtering my water and I noticed something had changed. Wait, this was not like this before. This was... this was not like this before. Oh, great, and there's an eclipse. Wonderful. Almighty obelisk, you have accepted my offering? I don't know how close I should get to this thing. That was made out of something else before I killed the dragon, right? Right? That was not this. Would you shut up? Thank you. I'm concerned. I'm concerned. The obelisk is now officially freaking me out. But even if I was freaked out, work had to continue. On day 81, I enchanted my axe, hoping for Silk Touch, but just getting efficiency, harvesting all of the crops for more trading with the villagers, and then started building myself up a little bit of a final resting place for when this challenge would be complete. It's desert theme, so I'm gonna go with a lot of sandstone and make a pyramid. But I wanna make sure that I'm using smooth sandstone so it looks awesome. And on day 82, I built up a bit of a pyramid and it looks really dinky. As my new librarians were finally growing up, the first one gave me mending on the first try, which was awesome because some of my tools were starting to run on the low side. I quickly grabbed the first mending book, locking that trade in and setting my chest plate to be the first thing that would never ever break on me. As I kept just trying to figure out what was going on with the monolith, I was continuing to build out on the pyramid and realized I didn't like the current design. So I set up a few spires around it and set up a bit of a vertical wall, kind of similar to regular vanilla Minecraft pyramids, and basically building my version at about the same scale. On day 83, that was the main thing that I was working on, using a combination of smooth and regular sandstone to have a lot of texture in the walls, even though I don't have a lot of space to work with. Once I had actually put it all together, it was starting to look good, but I wanted to mix in some red sandstone as well. Thankfully, you can grind up granite to make red sand, which you can then craft into red sandstone. So I went down into the mines, harvesting up a bunch of limestone and a bunch of granite. Just some beautiful decorative blocks all together. But this pyramid was going to look pretty empty on the treasure side of things. So I thought, let's go back down into the deep dark, where I can get a lot of diamonds very quickly. Now, I just want to say this in general. There are two problems that I have with the deep dark as it's implemented in this mod. First off, those sound effects that are constantly playing in the background are ridiculously creepy and had me on edge for the entire time that I was down here. And secondly, either I had the absolute worst luck, or the diamond ore that are in the deep dark are not fortunable, which is very not fortunate for me who wanted a ton of diamonds. But I spent several days down here working my way through all of the tunnels, collecting any diamond ore that I could see, which was a lot, mind you, and eventually finding my way into another large cave system. Down here there was a ton of these purple candles, which despite being not lit were still glowing, creepy, as well as these awesome blue crystals which glue all the time, which just those were cool. I wanted all of those right away. I went and I harvested as much diamonds as possible till I had basically a stack of them sitting in my inventory before marking my territory and heading back up to the overworld, being surrounded by alligators, but thankfully able to juke them pretty quickly. Day 87, I started grinding up all the granite into red sand so I could integrate that color scheme into the base as well, and then replaced all of these smooth sandstone towers with limestone, using all of the different textures available through the grindstone to come up with something that just looked really unique. I placed 4 of them around the pyramid at all of the corners, and then used all of the smooth sandstone that I collected to completely finish off the roof of this thing on day 88, integrating in a little bit of deep slate tile, and then starting to store all of my riches inside. It's not much, but it's honest work, using the crystals to add this little bit of ambiance and glow and magic, and then finally getting the smooth red sandstone integrated into the walls to set up a little mini Ankh pattern that matches the vanilla Minecraft pyramids. Day 89, I realized I should probably just go all out and went for stairs across all of the top to make it look that much more detailed, which took a good chunk of the day, mixing in some regular sandstone stairs so the thing still looked weathered and real and not just perfectly smooth and pristine, where this desert would be buffeting against it for quite some time. I harvested a ton of sand through the remainder of the day so I'd be able to do some terraforming on day 90, making sure that the thing would actually look like it kind of belonged here and wasn't just plopped down on the surface. I moved my bed and stacked all the diamonds that I currently had, all the redstone, and all of the lapis and iron, which primarily did fill the space, but it's a little light on the diamond side, no judging. Then on day 91, I realized there was one challenge yet in this world that I had not yet accomplished, and that's doing a raid. I know I could try to kill the wither as well, but I don't think I have the time to get enough wither skeleton skulls. So instead, I started moving the fletching table over to the tower, having my source of ammunition stored where I plan to hold up, basically, and then sealed them in to make sure they didn't get lost or go to a different bed. I did a little bit of trading with all of my villagers to get emeralds that I then turned into a ton of arrows, slept through the night, and then just spent all of day 92 preparing for battle, culling a lot of the cows to make another set of water skins, 2 of them, so I could heal that much more without having to stop to refill, and then blocking up all of the windows that were currently available and sealing all of the villagers into their homes, so that way whenever a pillager did come, they wouldn't be able to get through the door. On day 93, I ventured out to the pillager tower that I had found almost 50 days ago at this point and immediately bowed down the captain, the first one that I was able to see. I thought, you know what, why don't I try a level 2 raid? I spent a little bit of time bouncing around the tower and bashing all of the pillagers that I saw, but another one with a banner didn't spawn right away, which made me think, maybe I should just do level 1. This is a sign. I ran back to the village, watched the progress bar fill, and it was time for a battle. And this time, I was doing the raid boots on the ground. You've seen me snipe at enemies from on top of a tree several times over now, or use a farm where I'm just biting at their ankles. This time, I wanted to make it interesting and face everything head on, standing right in front of them. The first wave is practically a pushover. It's only 3 or 4 mobs. It's when the Ravagers come in that things actually start to get pretty challenging. Thankfully, with a flame bow, I'm able to do a decent chunk of damage from a little bit of range while still being somewhat at risk. I got to wave 4 where evokers started spawning on top of the Ravagers, and that's where things got even riskier. See, from the angle that I was shooting at a lot, the Ravagers were tanking a lot of the hits, meaning that the evokers were able to spawn multiple waves of Vex, which is something that I usually try to avoid whenever I'm doing a raid. Those little flying rats will absolutely be my death. They got me down to just a single heart, and I'm holding the totem in my main hand, thinking if they hit me again, at least the totem will pop. But thankfully, I was able to get off a golden apple and get myself pretty well regenerated, running around, fighting off the Vex throughout all of the night until the morning of day 94 when I found the final pillager trapped in a hole, and I just kind of shot them anticlimactically and the raid was over. I released all of my villagers, banked all of the totems, and took advantage of the increased trading rates, finding that I had taken some casualties throughout the night. One of my farmers was gone, several of my librarians had also taken a hit. It must have been the Vex that had flown through the walls to do that damage, since none of the corporeal mobs could actually go through. So I spent the day just watching the sunset and tried to think about what I was going to do for the final 5 days. In the ocean, I could just build a boat to sail away. And now I had made myself basically a tomb. Was it some kind of subconscious thing? Was I going to just lay down to rest here forever? I didn't want this to be the end. I have so much more that I still want to do. As the day started to come to a close and I was starting to prepare my plans for the next morning, I heard it. Thunder in a desert just doesn't happen. I'd spent the entire time here. Those storms never make it this far into the hot, arid climate. And I was walking around waiting to see what happens. The lightning was striking the monolith. I started feeling this pull, this call to go closer, to investigate, to see what was happening. While still being attacked by random mobs and having to defend myself, things started to accelerate pretty quickly.
All right. Okay. What's going on here? Yo. What is going on? What? No. What's going on? What is 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 going on? No. No.
As I started flowing up further and further, being pulled higher into the sky, there was a flash. And what happened next? Well, you're gonna have to wait until the next video to find out. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you want to support my channel, go check out my Patreon, just like the names that you see on screen right now. They are the supporters, and the first 100 people to back the Patreon will have your name as a mob that will be hunting me down in my next 100 days included in the world. I'm also probably live on Twitch right now, twitch.tv/Legundo. Come join me for a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun in the Series 2 world, and it's great to always be able to connect with you all directly. That's it for me. I'll see you in the next chapter, everyone. Take care of yourselves, be good to each other, and bye-bye.